So today we're going to use our box method to complete the square. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to take the problem that we have here and we're going to use it to put around the outside of our box. So the top we're going to label one box X and the other +8. And we're going to do the same going down the left side here. Okay? And once we have that broken up, what we're going to do is we're going to use this box to help us figure out the multiplication terms we're going to get by multiplying the side and the top of each box. So for example, I'm going to take this X and multiply them together. X times X is going to give me X squared. And then next, I'm going to do the same thing, except I'm going to multiply this X with this 8 to figure out what would go in this box here. So X times 8 is going to be 8X. And I'm going to put a plus sign in front of it because it's a positive 8. So that's going to give me a positive 8X. Next, I'm going to take this X up here and multiply it by this 8. So again, 8 times X is going to give me plus 8X. And finally, last but not least, I'm going to multiply these last two numbers here, this 8 and this 8. 8 times 8 gives me 64. So now that we've filled in our entire box, it's time for us to take this answer and put it together to create the final answer for our problem. So we're going to combine our like terms. I've got this X squared, it's all by itself there. That's going to be my first term. I've got 1X squared. And then I'm going to look and I'm going to see that I have two boxes with X's. So I have this 8X and this 8X, and I'm going to combine them together. 8X plus 8X is going to give me 16X. And then last but not least, I've got my last box here, which says plus 64, and that's going to go on the end here, plus 64. Now, there are some patterns I want to make you aware of, and I'm going to do that right now before we get too far into this. And here's what I want you to notice. This value in our problem, this 8, is related to two numbers in our answer. Okay? This 8 is related to my middle term, which is a 16, but it's also related to this last term, that's a 64. Okay? 8 is half of 16. Okay? I want you to think about that. That should make sense to you because if you look over here, our 16 is represented by these two boxes that we have 8 and 8. 8 plus 8 would give me 16, which is that middle term. Now my 64 is coming from this box because what we did to get the 64 is we multiplied 8 times 8. Okay, so that pattern is going to be consistent throughout all of these problems, and it's going to help us a little bit later on. So let's do our next problem here. We've got X plus 10. We'll do the problem, and then we'll look at our patterns again. So I've got X plus 10 and X plus 10. So start with your multiplication. X times X is going to give us an X squared. And then we're going to do this X times this positive 10, which will give me positive 10X. And then I'm going to go this top X times this 10. So I've got another positive 10X. So again, 10 plus 10, that's where we're going to get our doubled, our 20 there. And then finally, 10 times 10 will give me the answer for this box here. So now let's put things together. Combining like terms, I have X squared here. That comes first. I have my X's next, so 10 plus 10 gives me my 20X in the middle. And then finally, 10 times a 10 gave me this 100 to add on the end. And again, look for that pattern. I want you to notice this 10 is half of my middle term. And then if we take this 10 and we square it, we're going to get this last term. Now those two little hints are going to help us with this next problem. In this problem, we're missing this first term. But I know that this first term has to be half of my middle term. Okay, think about it. That 18X has to be split between these two boxes. I'm going to add them up and get 18X. So what number can I add to itself to get 18? Well, hopefully you realize that's 9. Half of 18 is 9. So both of these need to be 9X and 9X. That would give me my 18. So if you know that, then we know that this number here has to be a 9. So we've got X plus 9 and X plus 9. And now we can fill in the rest of this box. So X times X gives me my X squared, which we have right here. We've already got our 9x and our 9x, which gives me 18x. And then finally, 9 times 9 is going to be 81. And that's my last term. And remember, we said if we take this term and we square it, we're going to get that last term here. So see if you can figure out what would happen to this 10. Okay, what's going to go in these parentheses? I need something that when I split it in half, it's going to give me, oops, I gave my answer away right there. If I split it in half, it's going to give me 10x when I add these two boxes together. So if I want them to add up to 10, you know, we've got a 5x and a 5x. So we take that middle term, split it in half, and that tells me what my problem is made up of. I have x plus 5 and x plus 5. Now let's go back and complete the square here. X times x gives me x squared. And then finally 5 times 5 gives me 25. Oops. And then just double check and make sure that if we square this term, we do get our last term there. All right, one more type of problems here. This time we're not given our middle term. We're only given this ending term. So I know that this has to be a 49. So let's think about what we know. We know that whatever we multiply together here and here, okay, these two things have to multiply together to give me 49. So what times what is 49? Hopefully, you know it's 7. 7 times 7 will give me 49. So now I can fill that in because I know 7 times 7 is 49. We can go back and fill in the rest of our box. Oops, I forgot my x's here. So we have x plus 7, x plus 7. X times x is going to give me x squared. We know that x times 7 is going to give me 7x. This x times 7 will give me 7x. And then to figure out my middle term, we add those two together, and we get 14. Go back to your pattern. Remember, this term is half of our middle term, and if we square this term, we get our ending term. Alrighty, looking at this bottom problem, 36. I know that this times this has to be 36. So I think about it, what times what is 36? You might say 9 and 4, but remember, it has to be the same number. So if we want this to be 36, we know that it has to be 6 times 6. So this is going to be a 6, and this will be a 6. So x plus 6 and x plus 6. So let's go through. Oops, add my 6 up here. So we've got x times x, which is x squared. We've got x times 6, which is 6x. This x times 6, which is 6x. And if I want to complete the square, we'll add these two together. Gives me 12x. Double check your math here. 6 times 2 gives me that 12 in the middle. And if I square it, I get my last term. Now, one last thing to think about. What if we had a negative sign? Does this change anything? All right, so here, let's just test this out. We've got an x minus 4 and an x minus 4. So let's just do the math here. X times x gives me x squared. Now, when I do this, I've got x times negative 4. That's going to be negative 4x. And this x times this negative 4 is negative 4x. And finally, when I do negative 4 times negative 4, I get positive 16. The only thing it changes are our symbols, so we have to pay attention. When I combine my like terms, I have x squared. My middle term is going to be negative 4 minus 4, which is like negative 4 plus negative 4, gives me negative 8x. And then my last term is going to be this positive 16. So one more example. X minus 1, x minus 1. All right, x times x is x squared. X times negative 1 gives me negative 1x. This x times negative 1 is negative 1x. And then negative 1 times negative 1 gives me positive 1. So let's write our final answer. We've got x squared minus 2x, because this and this combined together to give me minus 2x. And then finally, plus 1 on the end.